Hey guys, welcome to this week's Money and Investing Show. This is the first week of our Foundation series, the planks in the deck that will set you up for a long-term prosperous financial future. And this week we are looking at pocket money. Maybe you're too old to receive pocket money from your parents, but maybe you're old enough to start giving it to yours. So make sure that you take plenty of notes, and as always, take plenty of action. A lot to grasp out of this, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the show. Hey guys, welcome to this week's Money and Investing Show with me, your host, Andrew Baxter, and as always, my offsider and co-host, Mitch Olarenshaw.
Thank you for having me on the show, Mr. Baxter. And today, just like a banana, we're going to peel this back to basics. This is the Money and Investing Foundations, or one of the episodes at that at least. We're going to be talking about pocket money for kids and then transitioning into part-time jobs. As a parent, how do you manage that and what do you actually pay them?
Great area, and I think this idea of a foundation series, which will obviously layer up as time goes by, is going to give people a really good platform. And look, if you don't have kids, that's cool, but if and when you do get there, then this will give you some sort of guidelines perhaps, or some DNA game plan to get the most out of giving them some great life skills and starting them off in the right way. And it's interesting, we all have a relationship with money, and a lot of that relationship that we have with money is something that we inherit from our parents, good or bad, or bits of both, good and bad, if you will. But a lot of that DNA can rub off, and you hear people that have money stories, we've never been good with money, and effectively you're sentencing the next generation to the same sort of limiting beliefs. Yet with some adjustments and shifts, maybe through this kind of foundation series and a more robust game plan, you can set your kids up certainly for a very, very different financial outcome, where their stories and beliefs around money are quite different, and so too likely are the outcomes.
And I guess if you're getting pocket money as a child, it's really your first exposure to money, which is where your relationship starts off, right?
It's hugely important. I mean, you think about the different things that we inherit from our parents, beliefs about everything, morality, honesty, work ethic, family dynamics, all of those different things we certainly inherit from our parents. And so money is a huge one. And the first taste that most people get of money when they're a kid is, of course, pocket money. And so what we're looking to do, I guess, is weaponize that in a way that's going to give them very good probability and prospects for long-term financial success with great habits and great relationships with money.
All right, well, let's kick off, AB. So pocket money, really two different scenarios. Dad, Mum, can I have some money, please? Yep, here you go, thanks. Or an actual return on effort for doing a chore. What's the difference and what's the pros and cons?
Sure thing. I mean, I didn't get pocket money as a kid. My parents didn't believe in it, couldn't afford it either. And I'm of the view, because you inherit your views from your parents oftentimes, that I see pocket money as child welfare. If you just put your hand out and give your kids money for no real reason, effectively it is child welfare, and you're conditioning them to the value of money as you just ask for it and it comes, and it doesn't really mean much because you can always ask for more, which is a really toxic foundation, I guess, on which to build your life going forward as an adult into the world of money and investing. Now, to put a caveat on that, I'm not talking about you live in an empty sackcloth and wash your face with a lump of coal and you live by candlelight. But if you need things, you can have it. But that notion of just simply dishing out cash on demand is a really toxic thing, and I see people in our social group do that with their kids, and I see a lot of people that now don't, which is great to see. And it causes you to set back and perhaps create this narrative that we're talking about now. How can you better set your kids up rather than can have some money to let's actually explore the dynamic of the relationship with money here.
A massive sense of entitlement comes with that too. I remember fortunate enough to go to a private school as a child. Kids, even at 16, 17, oh, don't worry, mum and dad will top me up. I'll get this one. It's just you ask for money and you get it, and it creates such bad habits because then you just get into that habit of spending without actually understanding the value of it.
Exactly right, and it becomes the knock-on effect. So if the value that's associated with money is easy come, easy go, just put your hand out and you get more. It's easy to come by and it's very easy to pump out the back door, particularly in today's world with buy now and pay later. But the reality is that's free and easy spending is a very dangerous cycle, which can be quite toxic down the line.
So on the other side of the coin, AB, actually having to earn your coin and then choose how you spend it from there would be doing some household chores. So talk to us a little bit about how that might look like.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's a myriad of things that you can do, and some may come across as being a little harsher or more maybe draconian. But again, with all of these steps, there's an end in mind with that process. So yeah, I guess, look, okay, you want some pocket money or you need some money, no problem. Help us out around the house. we're a family, we're a team, we need to help each other, is, I guess, the way to put a caveat on that. And a lot of people feel that, giving their kids pocket money for doing chores around the house, like clearing the table after dinner, for example, creates the wrong impression that that it's a task that they have to do rather than they get to do, and I understand that totally. At the same time, in a family dynamic, let's say mum and dad are both working, anything helps in terms of an effort, especially if you've got a number of kids. It all helps keep the ship moving forward. Now, I'm not talking about getting a 2-year-old working on a lathe in a woodworking factory. That's probably a little extreme, but at the same time, there comes an age where people can help, and I look at that with my kids. I've got 5 kids, and currently my daughter's 8, she's the oldest, my son is 6, the youngest is just turned 1, and we've got a 3 and a 4-year-old in there, and they're all at very different stages. The elder 2 in particular do a lot of different things around the house, A, because in some instances they want to, and B, because we ask them to, and it's not a commercial relationship that because you do that you get this, because we're not really at that stage, certainly with the 6-year-old yet, but it's getting closer to that. So clearing up after dinner is a good example. Taking the rubbish bin out, put it in the bins, an example of just really simple things that just help the flow of the house work really well. Cleaning the car out in terms of all the junk that people leave behind in a car. There's a couple of empty water bottles and an apple core and all that. Just every week, that's your job. Go clean the car out. As they get older, maybe clean the car. Depending on what car you've got, of course, you might not want your kids cleaning it, but
that's true.
Nonetheless, it's something that they can do. If you've got a pool and your kids can swim, they're a little bit older, maybe helping cleaning the pool if that's what you do. Clear the filter out, because A, they're all life skills, and B, if they contribute to what's going on in the house, they get to enjoy some of the household budget. So in return for doing those chores, then you get X dollars a week for doing it. And if you say, no, I'm not helping clear the table, that's okay. But then the flip side of the lack of contribution or effort means that there's also a direct impact on your income too.
Which is exactly like being an adult in life. If you work hard, you get paid. It's
a life skill that you're creating and embedding at a very, very early age. And I think as a parent, it's a responsibility to build those in the right way.
So can we have an example of what you do in your household and why?
So my daughter is 8, and one of the jobs that she does, which is a job that she gets paid for doing, is not a part of a pocket money. She actually gets paid for doing the job. She's got a horse, and I get her to clear the manure up in the paddock, the horse poo up every week. She gets $6 a week for doing that. It's a win for her because she's obviously got a horse, and sometimes we leave the poo out there to help the grass move along. But given the fact that we've got an organic farm, it's pretty handy to whack it over onto the other side of the thing. So yeah, I pay her $6 a week for doing that. She does it religiously, loves doing it, and the money that she has from it, she says, I don't know what I'm going to do with my money from this week, Dad. The first week was I'm going to go and buy X. I can't remember what it was now, but it was something like that. Yeah, she's not really a sweet tooth, but it was something that was like she didn't need. She said, I'm going to get a different helmet. I said, well, I've already got you a helmet, and it's a good helmet. So have a think on that. And then after about 2 weeks, 3 weeks, she's going, yeah, helmets are quite expensive. And I've already got one, so I don't need to do that. I think I'm just going to keep it back and have a think about what I want to buy. And I'm going, that's a really good idea. And I'm just pumped on the inside because she's actually arrived at that conclusion herself. She's a smart kid. That gratuitously it would be, I'll just buy another helmet. But now she's seen the effort that she has to go to every week, and then she can equate what she gets paid for that effort versus what the cost of a helmet for a horse is. It's a couple $100. So that's a lot of weeks of picking up poo in the paddock to do that. Does that equate to the pleasure you'll get from buying that helmet for the work that you've done, which is the best correlation, if you will, of life skills and action versus how you choose to spend your money. So that's one example. My son, he always helps with it. He's a great kid. He helps with the dishes or emptying the bins. He's someone that is, I'm not going to say he's a pleaser, but likes to help out. He's a really kind and sharing person. So we do that with him. And the others, they're just like the 4 and 3. They're probably a little bit young, but they're caught up and they help their siblings out anyway because they want to, as opposed to realising that they might get some pocket money for it.
So question for you, any parents listening to this probably can share this personal experience where they've had a pushback from their kid when they've asked them to do something. Did you experience that? And if you did, how did you get over it?
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to be, it's a very careful line because if you make it a really direct chore that's a command, you're actually breaking down the relationship you want between, you're ordering someone to do something and there's a bribe effectively. If you do this, you get money. And that's not the relationship you necessarily want to set yourself up for. Well, I guess some people are bribed by virtue of their pay packet to do jobs they don't enjoy because they want the money. And it's not really quite the relationship you want to establish. It's more a question of, look, there's a really good, shiny, fizzy air reward for helping us out here, and it's appreciated, and it's a token of thanks. So as opposed to, I'm commanding you to do this, and if you don't, you're not going to get that. Because as a parent, using a sledgehammer like that doesn't work, especially with younger kids. And there might be times where they're tired. My kids are involved with a lot of different after school activities. Obviously, we've got a farm, we've got a horse and motorbike and all the stuff that they get involved with outside. And sometimes, especially with kids of that age, it isn't like a working relationship where there are working hours. We'll get to that in a minute, I'm sure. It's helping out, and you're attaching a money value to it. So if they've just been swimming and they're exhausted, sometimes there's a time to just hang back. But I guess that's a parenting skill any parent listening to this understands.
Got you. So fleshing out a number of the insights you've given, AB, your kids receiving money for helping out and doing chores. Then comes the notion of discerning spending and budgeting on the child's behalf.
Yep.
As a parent, how do you coach them through that or assist them in that process?
It's an interesting one because my wife and I are both really quite different in terms of that. My side of the business is the money and the investing side, and hers is on the running the household and spending side. And we both play to our strengths, if I can say that. And I think some of the lessons that she imparts with the kids are really different to what I would do, and they're actually really good because I don't think there's any one way to do this. If you work and you have a level of money, you should also have some color and enjoyment from it, is I guess the point I'm driving at here. So sometimes they'll take their money jar and go and buy something and be really excited that they've gone down to the dollar shop and got all this stuff, and derive pleasure from that, which is also a really important anchor to say that, this work that you're doing and the savings that you've made, money in a jar doesn't really feel like much other than it's getting more and more full. But when you go and translate that into down at the dollar shop X, Y, and Z, and you're really enjoying playing with the car or the whatever it might be that you've just bought from there, you can then connect the pleasure with the act of saving, which is a direct relation to actually working in the first place. So there's a cause and effect and a reward. And she's great at really reinforcing that. I think, that's really, really important because it's a different style, I guess, to what I'm like. I tend to invest and save more than spend. I've done my fair share of spending in my life, but I derive as much from the investing rather than the outcome from it.
So in terms of actually discerning what that might look like for a child, do you give them full rein on what they can spend their money on, or do you create a budget for them, give them an amount, an allowance of what they can and can't do? How do you actually work out the intricacies of it? Yeah,
they're really different kids based on their personalities. So we've started with the idea of what budget is, and it's good when they come to the shops with you and they see what things cost. So my son loves bacon. He loves eating it. He loves cooking it. Cooks it for everybody.
Bacon.
Yeah, he's the king of bacon, Jack.
Bacon king. Nice.
But he's also, and so now he sees like a packet of bacon, I don't know, $11, $12 or whatever it costs for that. He's gone, okay, well, so I'll do this all. I get my $6 because, the formula we use is, for every year of age, you give them $1. A different discussion around the horse poop, because I said that's a different task. That's outside of the stuff we do in the house. That was a commercial, and I'll tell you about my daughter's negotiating skills there in a few moments.
Gotcha.
So he's looked at that and gone, okay, so I've got to work 2 weeks for a packet of bacon. So now I've noticed that last week he's not quite as free and easy throwing it all in the pan, not because we make him buy it, but he realizes that it's expensive. So he started to get the idea of what things cost.
Value.
Based on, okay, well, that's a week of chores for half a packet of that. So that's actually quite expensive stuff.
That's really, really smart.
Whereas previously it's like, we'll have some bacon, and he's just like, God, we've got 5 kids, so there's a kilo of bacon goes through the frying pan on a Sunday morning easily, but now he's starting to think of it through different lenses. And I, whilst I don't want him to see everything in life like that, I think it's a really important part of attaching value to effort, because effort, money, and value are 3 different components on there. The effort gives you the money. How you choose to spend the money and what value you get from it is your discretionary decision. And so, budgeting to a way, he's really generous. He'll give his money to everybody. He's just a really giving kind of kid. So if my eldest wants to get something, and she's actually quite shrewd, I think she's a little more like me with money, he'll go, oh, if you haven't got enough money, here's $5, Charlotte. And it's not I need it back. It's like, no, you can get this. I know you want it. He's just a really generous kid like that. He might change as he gets a little bit older, but...
Which drawing out Jack's lessons in his actions, it's like being an adult, right? If you want to go on a holiday or buy something for yourself, you have to have to equate some value to it. I worked this many hours to get this. So is it worth spending on it? Is it worth saving, right?
Exactly right. What benefit are you going to get from it? And like the other day, I know these are just anecdotes, but I guess, this is life, and it's the thing that sort of puts fuel in your tank to know that you're maybe on the right pathway with what you're doing. Maybe there are people listening to this who totally disagree with it, and that's their journey, their family, their decision. But like the other morning, we had a boys' day out and we were going to get haircuts and some other bits and pieces.
Nice.
And so we're there waiting for an appointment. So Matt's going to get a cup of coffee or a hot chocolate. In his case, he said, "Oh, great." He said, "I bought some money so I can buy you a coffee today, Daddy." And it's
Really?
like, I'm nearly crying. It's like, wow. I said, "It's all right, mate, I get this." He said, No. I said, "No, you're right. You save that up for something else that you really
That's
want."
beautiful,
And,
that's
and
awesome.
it was, that's real stuff. And the message is kind of sitting there. And as I say, he's a really giving kid. But it's his choice what he does with that money, and he knew that was a kind thing to do, and that's already something that's embedded in him. So he's worked, he saved his money, and he wanted to share it with someone he cared about, and that hit me, really did, as parents. Like, wow, it's now I'm talking about it. It's
Yeah, absolutely.
and that's, I think, a tick in the box of maybe the pathway that we're kind of on with the kids at this stage, but that will change over time. They'll get older, and the relationship they have with money, hopefully these sort of foundational skills are sort of sitting in there, and there comes an extent to what more chores can you give them? So my daughter's already got the horse poo because it's her horse, so it's something that's personal to her. But my son and I guess the others, they'll find things to do. So we've got chickens, so someone will end up taking over the egg run on the chickens every morning in the afternoon. And already one of the things that we do when we sell our eggs, that's their sort of kick of fun for holidays, books, whatever it might be. And they're getting involved with that. So at some point they'll take that over, which is a little bit more of a responsibility, because with animals it's 7 days a week. It's not like when you feel like it, because you have to be consistent. And I think there's also a direct correlation, because if they do a good job of their animal husbandry and we get more eggs, then they've got more eggs to sell, so they can make more money. So in the back of my mind, that's where I'm seeing the sort of journey with the kids going, in terms of, okay, and that becomes more of a business as opposed to, I guess, pocket money. And we're in a position where, we've created an environment where we can give them these lessons. It's not like, and I think that's also very, very important, because there's a transition between doing chores around the house and then starting to do things that perhaps have a little bit more commercial value. And that's an example of something that does have commercial value, where they can look after the chicks every day, feed them, water them, have that responsibility, which is a great life skill. And then when they see the fruits of that labor come through, there's maybe 60 eggs, 5 dozen eggs to sell, and maybe we put them out the front of the farm, and they're on the honesty stand, and it's $5 a dozen. So there's $30 coming in that day. And you go, well, okay, that's much more than the pocket money that mum and dad were giving me, but I'm also consistently doing a little bit more work towards it, I think is the next step through in that learning journey, certainly in my household. And I guess, the parents out there, they've got the ability to provide that. It's like a lemonade stand on the front driveway, isn't it? Same thing.
Really cool, AB. And I guess moving forward as we transition, you mentioned through the journey and then a commercial benefit. At what age and how do you actually encourage your kids to get into part-time work, which is kind of the next step, right?
Yeah. And again, this is, I think, an area that can be quite divisive in terms of what people's views are. And again, that may be something you've inherited through your own experience. And I'm a huge advocate for it, as indeed my wife is too. And I think that's coming from, in my case, a working class background where, my dad said, get a degree from the University of Life. You need to learn skills, get out there and do this. So the commercial stuff I did, like we didn't have a farm, didn't have eggs where I grew up, but my dad used to repair cars in the garage. So I'd help him on a Saturday morning and I'd get £5 for it. And it would be easy to be sat on the couch watching cartoons or whatever you do on a Saturday morning. And instead I had that work in the garage. Not ideal, not probably that safe either, but it was a great journey. I bonded with my dad and loved every minute of it, cold, wet and all the rest of it. Then my mum on the other side of it would be really keen on the pocket money philosophy. So I was getting if you work in a commercial sense and add value, you can make money, working with my dad fixing cars. But then my chores around the house moved up a little bit. So, it might be when you're sort of 13, 14, maybe you start cleaning the windows, which, in the UK outside in the winter when it's cold and wet is not much fun. And my mum, I always remember this, she used to give me, rather than my pocket money, if I'd done the washing up through the week and clean the windows, and I think I used to take the garbage bag out. I used to get, I think it was £5 of pocket money from mum, and I was probably about 13 or so at the time. But she never used to give me the notes. She used to give it me in a little brown envelope, and it was a breakdown of what I'd been paid it for.
Payslip.
So it's like a payslip.
Nice.
And really smart. And this is something I'm probably going to do with my kids, because we inherit our parents' map of the world sometimes. And I think, again, that attribution of what you've done to what you've got. So I'd go in the garage, £5 off Dad, and then I'd do all this stuff around the house, £10 a week, which was a lot of money back then. The difference is what Dad was doing was bringing money into the family, whereas what Mum was doing was taking something out of the household budget and giving it to me. And that gets you to that flexion point, I think, where, particularly in my case with 5 kids, I suppose, that's potentially a reasonable amount of pocket money that you're starting to pay out. And as they get older, maybe that's something you want to move off of your P&L and income and outgoings and move out to somebody else, which then forges the pathway, if you will, to going out and getting a part-time job after school. And I think a part-time job after school isn't just about earning your money or pocket money. It's about learning life skills. Like, for example, you have to turn up on time. You work longer hours, you get more money. You also get exposed to teaching and training. And as we all know, you can't be a prophet in your own land. You never listen to your parents, but if somebody else tells you, you probably will. So, if it's something like McDonald's, for example, not necessarily the most glamorous job, but you are going to get the best customer service training on the planet.
Great training.
Which is going to carry through the rest of your life in the way that you see the world in terms of service. So there are some serendipities to a part-time job in addition to the relationship around money, and those serendipities I don't think can be ignored. I think the other side of the coin, your kids can possibly do a little bit too much work after school or outside of part-time hours, and they may miss out on some opportunities at school. So I worked after school. I ended up working in the bakery in my village, £1 an hour. I love that job. I remember I worked 96 hours one week because I really needed to save up for something.
96 hours in one
Christmas
week?
holidays, I remember 96 hours, about 14, 15, got 96 quid that week. In fact, my boss, he was pretty tight, but he gave me 100 that week. He said, you deserve that, you've worked hard.
Bonus, round up, which isn't a lesson in itself.
Yeah.
You do extra work, you get paid extra.
And it's because I wanted something, so I had a desire for it. I knew I needed to save to get there, and I needed to put the effort in, the ingrained effort of learning these steps early in life, that if I put enough effort in, I can get to that. And in the end, I didn't buy it because do I need it or do I want it? I've just busted my back to get that. I think I'll hold the cash. And anyway, that's my own personal journey. But the trade-off on that is you might miss out on some after-school activities. And so, as a parent, again, knowing your own kids, you've got to also think. There's a bit of push and shove in there. Maybe more hours, maybe less hours, a little bit more pocket money, and some life skills versus some other opportunities they might be missing out on. It's always a trade-off. And I think you've got to get that balance right. The other thing is, of course, you don't want your kids to be exhausted. You want them at school learning and in a fresh state of mind. So getting that balance right is very important. But I do believe that if you outsource that after school job, it's a more formal working environment, and it's a precursor to being in the working world. Also looks great on your resume, and no question about it, can really help you again correlate the life skill of effort and work and the reward that then comes with that, and then the judgment decisions you can make about that reward. Are you going to save it? Are you going to spend it? Are you going to spend some of it and save the rest for something else? Are you saving for something bigger, in which case you've got to learn to budget? There's no real downside to those life skills yet. Unfortunately, some parents can, I guess, deny their children that opportunity to pick up those life skills firsthand based on their beliefs of whether it's a good or a bad thing.
And AB, listening to this, so many good lessons in there. And we talk about being foundations and basics. The things that we're looking to teach our kids is exactly the skills that we need to use as an adult, just in a different format at a higher level. But ultimately, what you do there is what you do now. So, are there any final words as we cap off our broadcast today?
Look, it sounds really basic, and the reason we talked about pocket money is a lot of our listeners are adolescent. So, if you're adolescent and you listen to this, it's time to sit your parents down and work on that pay negotiation. I did mention to you, I'd say what my daughter did. So, we started the bidding, and
this is for the weekly wage, right?
This is for the horse poo contract.
Okay, yeah.
It's contract.
Written?
It's got it. We've got it written out. She signed it. Yeah, it's fantastic. She's a really linear person, and she's really direct, and she is very, very smart. She said, okay, Daddy, I just need to make sure I get paid for doing this. I said, there's no credit risk here. But yeah, let's do that. So she's beautiful. So she's gone off and written this contract, said, do you want to type it up like you do for your work stuff, and we can both sign it, and says what we've got to do. So she said, I, Charlotte, I'll be picking up the horse poo, and I, Daddy, have got to. It's absolutely fantastic. So, and it's cash, not bank transfer. She wants the cold hard cash. She's a great negotiator.
Hopefully the ATO's not listening to this, by the way.
Well, there's a tax-free level for kids, actually. But and so we went through that, and then she started the bidding at about $20. $20
a week?
Because it's an acre of paddock, and there's a fair bit of poo out there.
It's a fair bit of work.
And so, yeah, my negotiating strategy might have been just pulling a few more clubs out of the bag of skills in life for that. But yeah, we settled on 6, and the reason that number, it wasn't to drive it down. That wasn't what my intention probably was. Actually, you know me well enough. But no, it wasn't to drive it down. I wanted to make sure that what it wasn't too much, because if that became too big an influence over her, the idea of general pocket money and some of the chores around the house kind of blurs into the background. You go, look, I'm making 20 a week doing my horse poo, so I'm not going to do the dishes or clarify the stuff off the table or just generally help out, whatever it might be. So you then blur that line because the relative values from different things can be quite distorted. And I guess, on the back of that, just as an observation, you can see, when people get into juvenile crime, all of a sudden you can make $1,000 a week by selling some drugs to kids at your school. So why would you want to do anything over here at McDonald's?
Why go to school?
Yeah. And so I think you've got to be really minded on where those relative values are, so they don't pull people down a pathway, good or bad, whatever that may be. So that's why we ended up at 6, which commensurate with the work was about right. So I do help her out with it as well. So
you're a hard man.
Yeah, no, I do give her
I'd hate to work for you.
Might drive the tractor around with the bucket there so she can put it in there. So she'd have to put it in a bucket. But so establishing that number and arriving at that number is something that's important, and it will change over time as they get older. You've got to keep them interested. Obviously, it's also a cost of living rise too. So that $1 a year of age is probably not a bad, easy benchmark, and then maybe you get to that threshold where what they're doing, it becomes $2 for every year of age as time goes by. That's just a really basic formula, and it's not set in stone, but it just gives you some guidelines as to what's reasonable. But irrespective of anything else, if I kind of put my money and investing hat on, which is the hard-nosed industry that I'm in, and I look at the lessons, and conditioning is probably not the term to use because it sounds like it's a real manipulation, but it is conditioning that these kids are getting at this age, and their relationship with money is positive. In terms of, if I look at my son, he's very generous with it because maybe he's a little bit younger and maybe his sister's negotiating skills get to him from time to time. But nonetheless, his characteristics around money are there, but he still saves, and his understanding that it's his discretionary money to spend on things that will give him joy. In the case of buying me a coffee, he felt that was just mind-blowing, that to see that through, or saving up to want to get something and actually going, I think I'll just keep the cash back because something better might come along down the line, is key. And as a final sort of point to all of that, if your kids are saving, and just to really turbocharge that relationship with money, depending on their household finances and where you're at, and your ability to do this, at the end of the year, doing a savings match with them. Like, okay, you've managed to save $50 and introducing the concept of interest. You've saved 50, so I'm going to give you another 50 to go in there to do it because you've done really well at saving that. So you're reinforcing that message that saving is a good thing, it's a positive thing, and savings can help you then generate more return from the money that you've saved versus spending. And that's a really subtle, and maybe giving them a dollar match isn't the right amount. Maybe it's like, if you save $50, I'll give you another 10, or whatever you work out that goes with your budget. But whatever that number might be, the fact that you're conditioning saving being a good thing, and introducing the concept that when you have some money, it grows naturally if you work it, as opposed to just choosing to frivolously spend it, I guess is another point to that as a parent, and the life lessons that you can give your kids through pocket money. And something, just thinking back of what we've talked about over the last 20, 25 minutes, and you mentioned this, it's not just about kids in pocket money, it's actually life, and how life actually works at a more grown-up level too, an adult level. So hopefully there's something in here for everybody. First of our foundations, there'll be plenty more we start from, but right now we're talking about helping your kids fill their piggy bank, and doing it in a way that's not gratuitous, and where they've just got their hand out for child welfare. They understand the relationship and the value associated with money, what the trade-off and the opportunity costs of earning it might be, and therefore when they go further forward in life, they spend it wisely and use a level of stewardship over it, which is ultimately the responsibility that come with wealth.
Great stuff, AB. Couldn't have said it better myself. Thanks very much.
Absolute pleasure. Anytime, Mitch. There you have it, guys. Make sure you give us a review and a rating, and we'll look forward to hosting you next week.